Tonight I'm taking you somewhere a little bit unusual and out of the norm. We're going to go to a traveling carnival because tonight's movie review is Nightmare Alley. Came out in 1947. It stars Tyrone Power, Joan Blondell, Coleen Gray, and a man named Ian Keith. He's not doesn't have a huge role in the movie, but he's worth noting because he does such an excellent job at playing a drunk, washed up carny guy. Now, this is the perfect example of one of those movies where a man starts out at the lower bottom. He works his way up, climbs to the top. He's on top of the world, and then he falls and is at the bottom of the barrel again. The plot of the movie is Tyrone Power plays a carny guy. He has a lower end job, and he wants to make a name of himself. He wants to climb the ladder. He wants to become famous and rich and all those things. So he's taught by Joan Blondell how to basically con people into thinking he has psychic abilities. For example, there will be a crowd of people and he will be blindfolded, and somebody, his partner, will be reading a card to him, and he'll be able to not only read the card back, but he'll be able to give the right answer. And the way he's able to do this is the way his sidekick is talking to him, does it in code, so he's able to understand what the card means just by the way she's speaking to him. It's a little bit confusing, but when you see the movie, you'll get it. And basically, he's able to do it. He climbs to the top, but he wants to go higher and higher. But, in movies like this, there's only one way to go down, and that's down, is when you're at the top. My biggest problem with this movie was nobody in this film was likable because everybody's a hustler. In fact, Tyrone Power's character even says, I'm a hustler. He even sometimes, if you feel like he's conning and hustling his wife, just the way he talks to her. And that's another problem, was his wife, Coleen Gray. She was terrible. I thought she was just a really bad actress. There's a scene where she is talking to him about getting married, and basically she's saying, I'll be the best wife ever, and I'll do anything you want, and it's just the fakest acting not I've ever seen, but it was just really bad acting, really poor. And so the fact that she's such a poor actress in this it makes me not like her either. And all the other people in the film I just didn't care for, and that ended up to where I wasn't rooting for anyone. And the main reason why I didn't like Tyrone Power did an excellent job at the role he was given, but I didn't like him because he was conning people and taking their money, making them believe that he was talking to their loved ones, things like this. And maybe that's what the director wanted, was to show that life into the carnival life, the darker side of it. And maybe that's what he was going for, but in the end I didn't like Tyrone Power at all. Usually, gangster films from back in the day, you'll be cheering for the gangster, but Tyrone Power, I really wasn't. I was hoping he would get caught, basically, for conning so many people. And the most interesting scene, actually, is when, believe it or not, Coleen Gray did it. She did an alright job in this scene where she's saying to Tyrone Power, you're starting to talk like a preacher, like you're God or something like this, because he's really conning people into thinking that he's talking to their loved ones and things like that, and just really fooling them. And it's really powerful because Tyrone Power is just like, powerful and power. Tyrone Power snaps. He says, no, I have never mentioned God. I haven't talked like a preacher at all. And I think this was one of the themes of the movie, is you can't let power get to you, or else you'll start to feel like you're a god. And that happens with maybe people like this. There are plenty of examples in today where you can believe in them or not. Like, what's his name? John Edward. He had a famous show where he claimed that he could talk to loved ones, he could talk to the dead. But maybe he's just like Tyrone Power's character. Maybe he's just a hustler and he's hustling a lot of people. So there's John Edwards, Cynthia Brown. There are plenty of people like this. Maybe they're all just hustlers. Maybe they're real. I don't know. But this movie shows the hustler side of it, and I thought that was fascinating about this movie. And basically, yes, this movie does give great insight into the darker side of carnival life. And there's a really interesting part at the start of the film where you learn about a geek, a carnival geek. And what a carnival geek is, it's a person that he or she'll do anything to get booze. So they'll bite the heads off of a snake, they'll eat raw animals when they're alive, and do just bizarre things like this just to get alcohol at the end of the movie. And it was really creepy. I really liked that this film they actually created a real carnival set for this movie, and that was a really amazing part of this movie because you really feel like you're at the carnival, and it added to the creepiness when you could hear the geek's cries. And I really wanted to see the geek. I wanted to see what the geek looked like. I was, imagining some freakishly looking human, and that it would just be really scary. But sadly, they never showed the geek. But I like that aspect of this movie. The director used shadows very well in this movie to give that creepy vibe. But, I mean, like I said, I didn't like anybody in the movie. I wasn't dying for the movie to end, but towards the end, I did feel like it started to drag on a little bit. For example, once he's discovered to be a con man, it took too long to get to the part where he, of course, becomes a geek. He becomes that man desperate for alcohol. And I felt like it took 10 minutes too long to get to that part. I'm going to give this movie 2.5 stars just because, like I said, there were some good parts. I liked seeing insight into the darker sides of carnival life. That was really interesting. Of course, it loses points just because I didn't like anyone. The story was decent, but not amazing. And that's pretty much all I have for this movie. I do have a, excuse me, I do have a picture of Tyrone Power, and I don't know if you can see, but it's a picture of Tyrone Power with Loretta Young. They were in plenty of films together, and I do plan on doing some movie reviews, some more Tyrone Power movie reviews, probably his more common swashbuckler films. I really like those, and obviously I love Errol Flynn. I have a big picture of him in my place, and I'll do Errol Flynn movies too, of course, in the future. But it's a nice movie. It was really strange not seeing Tyrone Power with a sword in his hand, and I'll give him credit. He did a pretty good job. I didn't like his character, but he did a good job. This movie was actually hyped. Had a pretty big budget too, but it lost money at the box office. It was a failure. Maybe because people they didn't give in to the idea of Tyrone Power not holding a sword. I don't know. But I do know that Nightmare Alley is considered a great film noir movie. I know on Rotten Tomatoes it's given, I think it has 100%, which is pretty amazing. So a lot of people do love this movie. I personally didn't care for it too much for the reasons I discussed, but maybe you love this movie. Let me know. Put it down in the comments section, and I'd love to see that. But I hope you enjoyed your time with me at the Traveling Carnival tonight. watch the movie if you haven't, and have a good night.